For more on the relationship between China and the EU, I'm joined by Peter Morici, Professor of International Business at the University of Maryland's School of Business. Welcome back. Good to see you.
Nice to be with you.
These big visits, we see state leaders do this all the time. They always come with the big deals. When the media leaves, when the cameras walk away, what will have these meetings accomplished?
Well, there'll be a lot more trade between France and China. You have to remember that France and China are unusual between East and West, and that France recognized China in 1964, when it wasn't stylish to do in the West. And so there's a very strong bond. France has fallen behind Germany in terms of developing markets in China for technology products, helping them develop the auto sector and so forth, and is looking to strengthen those ties.
The recent discussion about Russia and Ukraine, the tensions, China also has a role as well. It's been relatively quiet. Does that play a role in that relationship, and will it affect it?
Yes, it does. Let's face it, for most of the post-war period, there have been three major powers. And it's always better if you're one of them for the other two to be squabbling with each other. So this takes some pressure off of China. You know, the Americans challenge China a lot in the Pacific. It has aspirations that it considers legitimate. And American attention is going to have to shift towards that part of the world, and our assets are such that this will put more tension, strain on the Europeans, the French, the Germans. And we heard from Mr. Obama today about that, saying you need to do more.
Is it a fair statement to say that because of those tensions, that it's not just France, but Europe in itself will likely do more business with Asia and China because Russia will be a bit of a struggle?
Actually, they're not substitutable. Russia's good for two things: natural gas and oil, and non-ferrous metals. On the balance of the universe, Russia is a very backward place. China is a rapidly modernizing economy with more and more to offer the West. And, you know, while it still doesn't do certain things very well and can learn from the West, it also has things to offer. So I think that it's a very different game.
Last couple of months, there's been some talk of the renminbi. The ban has expanded. It's weakened a bit, and some people are trying to perhaps put a different spin on this. Ultimately, though, does it have an impact on long-term trade when we look at short-term currency fluctuations?
Well, it's the trend in currency that matters. China's currency had been strengthening over time, and now that's gone away. That's going to make Chinese goods less expensive both in the United States and in particularly Europe, because the euro is so strong. That makes it more difficult for the Europeans to export into China. And the kinds of things we were talking about today, cars, planes, and so forth, the Europeans can be able to sell at any price because of their technology. However, the French today, we're trying to introduce about 1,000 small businesses into doing business in China. The currency is going to make a big difference for them. It's going to make it tougher.
Europe as a whole, I suppose, like many other places, runs a trade deficit with China. And there's been a lot of talk to try to fix that. But at the same time, there's a lot of talk about improving sort of domestic consumption within the factories in the individual countries. Those two things, can they complement each other?
I think in the case of China, they can a lot. China has a lot of neglected domestic development, improving the schools, improving the hospitals, improving healthcare. They don't have to spend quite as much money as we do on those things. But if it turns to those kinds of issues, and it is, as it develops and becomes wealthier, then that will refocus a lot of its energy in those directions and tend to balance out the trade. And that would be good for both sides, because they would use our technology to do that and buy our products. And if they bought more of our products, we'd grow more rapidly, and then they'd have more markets. I think with balanced trade, China could grow more rapidly than it is with this imbalance.
Besides France, any other countries you think we could see some major deals with China to be announced?
Well, I think we'll likely see more deals with Germany, Britain, Italy, and so forth, because again, they dealt today with Peugeot. The fact is, you know who one of the most dynamic automakers are on the planet right now? It's Fiat. What's going on over there is amazing. I got to believe that what has happened at Fiat over the last 15 years could offer the Chinese manufacturers some tricks in finally catching up with the Europeans and Americans.
It's absolutely fascinating when you think of the dynamics and all the geopolitical concerns, and here we are, of course, talking about it. Peter Morici, thank you very much, Professor of International Business at the University of Maryland's Business School.
It's always a pleasure to visit.